Thank you for joining me today and welcome back to our YouTube channel. I want to ask an interesting question today and answer it. What constitutes criminal harassment? Well, under Section 264(1) of the Criminal Code of Canada defines criminal harassment, and I'll give you a bunch of examples, but if someone repeatedly contacts, follows, stalks, shows up at work, continue to write text messages, phone calls, which reasonably causes fear, both subjective fear, in other words, the person feels fear, and that what a reasonable person would think is fear, that's criminal harassment. And that's a very serious crime in Canada. It can attract very serious jail sentences depending on the level of harassment. Stalking behaviors, for example, is very serious. So a person could face, if elected summarily, up to 2 years, less a day in jail. If the Crown elects by indictment, the person could face up to 10 years in jail. Some people who are, serial stalkers have multiple convictions, and I've seen convictions of 3, 4, 5 years in jail for those type of people. So what's the element here? And let me give you some examples. So let's say a very simple one. Let's say you've been dating someone and they break up with you. So you start texting and calling continually and repeatedly, and they complain to the police and the police warn you, and you continue that conduct. Well, that's going to cause reasonable fear. And even though they're not necessarily threatening messages, eventually you're harassing the person so much that they could have subjective fear that's reasonable, even on that. My rule of thumb, I tell people, look, it's called a breakup. Text and phone a couple times to get back together and let it be. And in fact, doing that, you might have a better chance of getting back together as opposed to continually harassing the person. Obviously, stalking behavior where you're sitting outside of someone's home or following them repeatedly is harassing behavior. But it can be, there's a whole bunch of slew of things. And direct threats is harassing behavior. You're doing this, you're following, you're making indirect threats. Harassing behavior can as well contacting other people about a person and making threats and harassing them in that way. You could be charged with criminal harassment. So it's a very wide range of conduct, Section 264(1) of the Criminal Code. It can be minor harassment. I mean, I suppose making some repeated phone calls is more on the minor side. I mean, let's say you made 10 phone calls in a row to someone over a few days, which caused them fear. That type of offense is going to attract a certain, perhaps non-jail term, up to some serious stalking behavior. And our criminal code really treats this seriously, I mean, especially in domestic type situations. But the real key takeaway is some situations don't attract reasonable fear. Like even though a person might have subjective fear, like let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say you broke up with a girlfriend, she broke up with you, and you make 4 phone calls over a couple of days. There's no threatening behavior. She reports you to the police and says, I'm fearful. Well, that fear may not be reasonable. You stopped, it ended. There's a fine line. The line's hard to describe and but that gray area of the line certainly cross when you just keep making phone call and phone call and phone call after phone call, especially if you've been warned. But even you don't even need a warning. There's some situations that just crosses the line. So that's it. It's a serious criminal code offense. It can attract serious penalties. There are cases that are defendable because the objective fear is not there. Maybe even the subjective fear is not there. But the criminal code asks a judge or jury who's looking at a case like this, and think about this. It's a simple question to say: would a reasonable person be fearful in that situation? And you don't have to make direct threats. Threatening is a different section too, but threats can lead to, of course, criminal harassment charges too. But it's threatening behavior in a sense, isn't it? In the sense that it's causing a person reasonable fear when you're stalking them, when you're repeatedly phoning them and whatnot. There's other sections of the criminal code where you're just making repeated telephone calls to a person can lead to a charge where even though there's not subjective fear. But so criminal harassment has a particular definition. Now the accused itself, they must know that what they're doing, their behavior, that there's a mens rea, they're guilty minded, and being reckless. In other words, not caring as to whether it's causing reasonable fear. So you don't have to know it's causing fear, but behavior itself per se cause fear and would cause fear in a reasonable person. Well, that's it in the bottom line in a nutshell. I guess the key takeaway is if someone breaks up with you, make a couple phone calls and let it go. It's called a breakup. Thank you for watching our video. We are absolutely committed to bringing you the best possible criminal and DUI educational videos. If you found this video helpful, please like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you've been charged with a criminal offense in Ontario and require our services, please click on the link in the description below.